January 10, 1971, the Ritz Hotel, Paris. In a suite decorated entirely in black and white, an 87-year-old woman lies dying. She's wearing her signature pearls even now. The maids whisper that she worked until the very last day, pinning fabric, adjusting hemlines, refusing to let go. When Gabrielle Chanel finally closes her eyes for the last time, she leaves behind more than a fashion empire.
Il y a un style quand les gens de la rue sont habillés comme vous. Et je crois être parvenu à ça.
How did an orphan girl from the French countryside become the woman who taught the world how to dress? But here's what haunts me about Coco Chanel's story. It's not the rags to riches fairy tale you think you know. It's darker, more complex, shot through with reinvention and betrayal, genius and compromise. Because to understand Chanel, you have to understand that she spent her entire life running from the truth of who she was, while simultaneously turning that flight into the most influential fashion philosophy of the 20th century. Let me take you behind the mirrored doors of 31 Rue Cambon. Let me show you the staircase where she sat, hidden, watching her models descend. Let me tell you about the lover who financed her dreams and died too soon, the business partner who played a longer game than she ever imagined, the German officer in her bed while Paris burned, the comeback that shouldn't have worked but did. This is the house that Chanel built, but more than that. This is the story of who tore it down, who rebuilt it, and what got lost in translation. Saumur, France, 1883. A girl is born to parents who sell old clothes and broken dreams at market fairs. Her mother will die when she's 12. Her father will abandon her at a convent. She'll tell people later that she was raised by aunts, that her childhood held some small grace. She'll lie about everything except this. She was nobody from nowhere, and that's exactly why she understood what women needed. They called her Gabrielle then. The nuns taught her to sew, not couture, just mending, just making do. She learned that fabric could be mercy, that a well-placed stitch could hold more than cloth together. In the convent's cold dormitories, she discovered that simplicity wasn't poverty's curse, but its strange blessing. When you have nothing, ornamentation becomes obscene. Years later, she'd tell lovers and journalists different versions of her past, each story perfectly tailored to her audience, because here's what Gabrielle understood before she ever became Coco. Fashion isn't about clothes, it's about the story you tell while wearing them. She sang in cafes before she sewed for aristocrats. Can you see her? 20 years old, working the crowd at La Rotonde, a cavalry officer's favorite haunt. They say she sang Qui Qua-Vu Coco, a silly song about a lost dog. The officer started calling her Coco. The name stuck like cheap perfume, and she let it. Already she knew. You can't choose what people call you, but you can choose what the name comes to mean. And then there was Etienne Balsan, rich, bored, raising horses when he wasn't collecting women. He installed her at Royal U, his estate where she learned to ride and watched his actress friends parade in their elaborate costumes. She started making hats, simple ones stripped of the birds and fruit and entire gardens that women balanced on their heads in 1909. Her hats were nothing. Her hats were everything. They were the beginning of understanding that fashion's greatest luxury might be the freedom to move. But it was Arthur Capel who changed everything. Boy, they called him, this English polo player with coal money wealth and eyes that saw her not as decoration, but as possibility. He looked at this nobody from nowhere and said, "I'll back you, not just with francs, but with faith." Paris, 1910. Imagine walking down Rue Cambon for the first time, past the grand hotels and established houses, and stopping at number 21, a narrow storefront, a simple sign, Chanel Modes. Inside, a woman who learned elegance from deprivation sells hats that look like thoughts instead of gardens. Boy Capel put up the money, but make no mistake, the vision was hers alone. Those early hats were manifestos disguised as millinery. Where others added, she subtracted. Where others complicated, she clarified. The actress Gabrielle Dorziat wore one of her hats in 1912, and suddenly everyone wanted to know, who is this Chanel? but she was already thinking beyond hats. By 1913, she'd opened a boutique in Deauville, that playground where Paris came to pretend at seaside simplicity. And here's where genius struck, dressed in sailor stripes and jersey fabric. Jersey. Let that sink in. The fabric they used for men's underwear. The material considered too poor, too plain for proper ladies. Chanel looked at it and saw liberation. She cut it into simple dresses that moved with the body instead of constraining it. She made poverty chic because she understood that true luxury was the ability to raise your arms, to walk without a maid, to be your own woman. World War I arrived like an unwanted guest, but Chanel understood something others didn't. Crisis creates opportunity. As women took on men's work, her practical designs suddenly made sense. Corsets became casualties of war. Her unstructured jackets and calf-length skirts weren't just fashion, they were uniforms for a new kind of woman. By 1915, she had 300 seamstresses working in Biarritz, 300 women earning wages in a world where most of their sisters still depended on marriage or misery. She paid them well, she worked them hard. She showed them that a woman could build an empire with her own hands. And then, 1918, the war ends. She signs the lease for 31 Rue Cambon, 5 buildings that she'll eventually connect with mirrors and secrets. This becomes her fortress, her laboratory, her stage. On the ground floor, the boutique. Above, the ateliers where her premieres translate her gestures into garments. And at the top, the apartment where she'll never actually sleep, but where she'll craft the myth of herself, decorated in the colors she trusted, black, white, beige. The colors of a woman who knew that true sophistication meant knowing what to leave out. 1921. The Russian Revolution has sent perfumers fleeing west, carrying formulas in their heads and memories in their hearts. Among them, Ernest Beau, who learned his craft in the Tsarist court and now finds himself in Grasse, experimenting with aldehydes, those synthetic compounds that make perfume shimmer like heat off pavement. Chanel commissions him to create something impossible, a perfume that smells like a woman. Not a rose, not a jasmine, not any single flower, but the abstraction of femininity itself. Bose presents her with a series of samples. She chooses the 5th, number 5. Because it was the 5th sample? Because 5 was her lucky number? Because she planned to launch it on the 5th day of the 5th month? She gave different answers throughout her life, understanding that mystery was its own marketing. But here's what she didn't anticipate. Perfume requires different skills than dressmaking. It needs vast quantities of flowers, complex distribution, chemical stability. Enter Théophile Bader of Galeries Lafayette, who introduces her to Pierre Wertheimer. Let me paint you this scene. Chanel at the negotiating table in 1924, thinking she's won because she retains her name, her control over fashion. She accepts 10% of the perfume company. The Wertheimers take 70%. The remaining 20% goes to Bader as finder's fee. She thinks she's smart, keeping her focus on what she knows, clothes. She doesn't realize she's just signed away her fortune. Within years, Chanel No. 5 becomes the best-selling perfume in the world. The Wertheimers grow rich beyond measure, and Chanel, who created it, who named it, whose very essence it was meant to capture, she watches other people count her money. She'll spend the next 40 years trying to claw back control, lawsuits, renegotiations, even, and this is where the story turns dark, an attempt to use Nazi racial laws to steal back what she thought was hers. But I'm getting ahead of myself. First, let me show you the golden years, when she still believed she could have everything. 1923, Monte Carlo. A woman in a simple black dress enters the casino. Beside her, the richest man in England, Hugh Grosvenor, 2nd Duke of Westminster. They call him Bendor. He owns more land than God and loves her with the desperation of a man who's never been refused anything. She meets him through Vera Bate, her friend and social navigator. One look and he's lost. Here's a woman who doesn't need his money, doesn't want his title, doesn't care that he could buy her France if she asked. She wants him for his body, his boats, his ability to make her laugh, nothing more. For 6 years, they conduct their affair across Europe. His yacht, the Flying Cloud, becomes her floating atelier. She designs on deck while the Mediterranean glitters. He shows her London society, and she shows them how to dress. Her English influences, the tweeds, the cardigans, the romance of riding clothes made city sharp, they all come from these years of playing Duchess without accepting the title. There have been several Duchesses of Westminster, she tells him when he proposes. There is only one Chanel. Can you imagine the courage that took to refuse the richest duke in England because you valued your name more than his? But she knew something he didn't. Marriage would diminish her. Mrs. Grosvenor could never be as powerful as Mademoiselle Chanel. Still, those years with Ben Dor solidified her position. Through him, she befriended Winston Churchill. They sailed together, painted together, gossiped together. Churchill's wife Clementine wore Chanel. His influence protected her. This friendship, pay attention to it. It will matter later when Paris falls and choices must be made. By 1935, Chanel employs 4,000 workers. 4,000. Let that number sit with you. 4,000 people drawing wages from a woman who started with nothing but a borrowed sewing machine and a rich man's faith. The house on Rue Cambon hums like a hive. In the ateliers, the petites mains, the little hands, work their magic. Each sleeve, each seam, each button placed with the precision of surgery. The premiers manage their teams like generals, interpreting Chanel's gestures, her impatience, her sudden inspirations. And Chanel herself? She's everywhere and nowhere. She keeps an apartment above the shop but lives at the Ritz. She appears for fittings, cigarette in one hand, scissors in the other, cutting directly on the body. No sketches. She can't draw. She thinks with her hands, her eyes, the memory of every woman who ever felt trapped in her clothes. The Chanel suit emerges in these years, not suddenly but through evolution. The collarless jacket that skims the body, the chain sewn into the hem so it hangs perfectly, the quilted lining that feels like armor made soft. Pockets, real pockets, because a woman needs somewhere to put her keys when she's building her own life. She codifies her colors, black, of course, white, naturally, navy like a sailor's discipline, beige like the walls of the convent where she learned that neutral was not nothing. Neutral was everything waiting to happen, and sometimes, just sometimes, red, like the mouth that speaks truth. Her personal life remains a careful construction. Lovers, yes. Paul Iribe, the illustrator who designs her jewelry and dies playing tennis at her villa, La Pausa. She finds his body herself, tries to revive him while her guests stand frozen. Later, she'll say she never recovered from finding death in her garden, but work is her true romance. The collections, the fittings, the endless refinements. She creates costume jewelry that makes real gems look vulgar. She designs perfumes, number 22, Cuir de Russie, Bois des Îles, each one a captured moment, a bottled memory. She understands that luxury isn't about cost. It's about the confidence to wear pearls with a sweater, to make the fake more desirable than the real. 1936. You can smell the war coming like rain before it falls. In Spain, they're already fighting. In Germany, they're already marching. In the ateliers of Rue Cambon, they're still cutting silk like nothing will change. But Chanel knows. She's always been able to read the wind. She starts making different kinds of alliances. There's Hans Günther von Dinklage, Baron von Dinklage. Spatz, they call him. Sparrow. A German officer with charm where his conscience should be. He's younger than her, handsome in that damaged way that appeals to women who think they can fix broken men. She meets him before the war, when he's just another charming European floating through French society. By 1938, as tensions rise, she makes a calculation. She's 55 years old. Her workers are threatening strikes. The wear-timers control her perfume. The world she built is tilting toward chaos. September 1939. Germany invades Poland. France mobilizes. And Chanel makes a decision that still haunts her house. She closes the couture operation, overnight. 4,000 workers dismissed with 2 weeks' pay. "This is no time for fashion," she announces. But was it spite, strategy, fear? Her workers had been agitating for better conditions. The Popular Front government supported them. Did she close to punish them, to preserve her materials? Or did she simply see what was coming and decide to hibernate until the world made sense again? Only the boutique stays open, selling perfume and accessories. Only the skeleton staff remains. And Chanel herself? She moves into the Ritz, which will soon host a very different clientele. June 1940. Paris falls. The Wehrmacht marches down the Champs-Élysées. The Ritz becomes German headquarters. And Chanel? She doesn't flee like other designers. She stays. She takes spats as her lover. She lives among the enemy, protected by her fame and her choices. Let me be clear. This is where the myth of Chanel fractures. This is where we must look at who she really was versus who we wish she'd been. She registers as Agent F7124, codename Westminster. Yes, they gave her the name of the lover she refused to marry. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. She travels to Madrid on German papers. She involves herself in Operation Model Hut, a bizarre scheme to negotiate peace between Germany and Britain using her friendship with Churchill. But here's the complexity. Was she a Nazi sympathizer or an opportunist? Did she believe in their cause or simply in her own survival? She tried to use the Nuremberg laws to wrestle her perfume company from the Wertheimers, claiming it had been abandoned by its Jewish owners. The Wertheimers, one step ahead, had already transferred ownership to a Gentile friend. Some say she was trying to free her nephew, André Palas, from a German POW camp. Some say she was protecting her workers by keeping them from forced labor. Some say she was just a woman approaching 60 who chose comfort over conscience. We'll never know the full truth. She destroyed her papers. She never spoke of it. When the Free French arrested her in 1944, she was released within hours. Churchill's influence? Her feminine wiles? Or did everyone simply agree that Coco Chanel was too valuable to lose? 1945. Paris is free but scarred. Women who slept with Germans have their heads shaved in the streets. Collaborators face trial or worse. And Chanel? She flees to Switzerland with spats, carrying her shame and her secrets. For 9 years, she watches from exile. Christian Dior launches his new look: nipped waists, full skirts, a return to the very restrictions she'd spent her life destroying. Women who'd found freedom in wartime work squeeze back into corsets. Fashion forgets everything she taught it. She seethes in Switzerland, living on perfume money. The Wertheimers, in a gesture of either guilt or genius, have renegotiated her contract. She now receives 2% of worldwide sales. It's enough to keep her in comfort. It's not enough to keep her quiet. Letters fly between Lausanne and New York. She threatens to create competing perfumes. She demands more money, more control, more recognition. The Wertheimers, patient as spiders, wait. They know something she's beginning to understand. The name Chanel is worth more than the woman herself. By 1953, she's 70 years old and furious. Dior rules fashion. Balenciaga dominates elegance. Her name still sells perfume, but her vision? It might as well be buried with Boy Capel. So she makes a decision that only Coco Chanel could make. She'll come back. Not because they want her, they don't. Not because fashion needs her. It thinks it doesn't. She'll come back to prove them all wrong. February 5th, 1954. The salon at Rue Cambon, closed for 15 years, reopens its mirrors. The fashion press arrives skeptical. The models descend the staircase wearing suits that look, to eyes trained on Dior's extravagance, almost insultingly simple. The French press savages her. A sad retrospective, they sneer. A ghost dancing with her own memories. But Chanel, hidden on her famous staircase watching through the mirrors, smiles, because she's not designing for Paris anymore. Life magazine gets it. American Vogue understands. While French women cling to their corsets, American women are building suburbs and careers. They need clothes that move from boardroom to cocktail party. They need Chanel. Within a year, she's back. The suit evolves, softer, easier, but still unmistakably hers. The quilted bag with its chain strap becomes the accessory every woman believes she deserves. The two-tone shoes, beige to lengthen the leg, black cap to shorten the foot, their genius disguised as simplicity. She's different now, harder. The warmth that once made her revolutionary has crystallized into something sharper. She works constantly, trusting no one completely. At fittings, she's brutal. This sleeve is vulgar. That hem is lazy. Start again. But she's also creating a new template, one that will outlive her. She establishes the codes, the camellia, the pearl, the chain, the quilted pattern. She turns her personal vocabulary into a brand language that can be spoken by anyone who learns the grammar. The models worship and fear her. She pays for their abortions and insults their walk. She discovers new faces and destroys old friendships. She is, in these final years, becoming less a person and more a principle. Here's what Coco Chanel never quite understood. She wasn't building a fashion house. She was building a machine. And machines don't need their inventors once they're running. Pierre Wertheimer dies in 1965. His son Jacques takes control. The relationship, always complex, becomes purely transactional. They increase her payments, they protect her interests. They also prepare for a future without her. She's 85 now, still working. Every morning she crosses from the Ritz to Rue Cambon. Every evening she returns. Her world has shrunk to these few blocks, these known faces, these familiar rituals. The world outside is changing in ways she can't or won't understand. It's 1968. Students riot in the streets she once walked. Women burn the bras she helped them abandon. Fashion explodes into color, pattern, youth. Everything she spent her life rejecting. She hates miniskirts with the passion of a woman who showed her ankles when it was scandal and can't understand why anyone would show their thighs when it's not. She despises blue jeans, seeing in them not the democracy of fashion but its degradation. And yet, her sales grow. The suit remains a uniform for women who matter. The perfume still promises transformation. The brand, separated from her opinions, thrives on its own momentum. January 9th, 1971, a Saturday. She works on the spring collection, pinning, adjusting, perfecting. Her hands, gnarled with age, still know exactly where a seam should fall. She tells her staff she's tired. Nothing unusual. She's been tired for years. That night, in her suite at the Ritz, she feels the pain. Her maid offers to call a doctor. She refuses. Gabrielle Chanel doesn't need help. She's never needed help. By morning, she's gone. Died in bed, alone, which is how she lived even when surrounded by lovers. The woman who created modern fashion dies on a Sunday when the ateliers are closed. Even her death respects the work week. The funeral is private. Her nephews, her grandnieces, a few friends. No fashion royalty, no grand procession. She's buried in Lausanne, in white flowers she would have considered excessive. Her tombstone bears 5 lions, her birth sign, her pride, her isolation. Within days of her death, the machine kicks into higher gear. Jacques Wertheimer takes full control. The couture house, dormant without her, needs direction. They try various designers. Nothing takes. The clothes exist, but the spirit is gone. Then, 1983. Alain Wertheimer, Jacques' son, makes a decision that would have either amused or enraged Coco. He hires Karl Lagerfeld. Lagerfeld is everything Chanel wasn't. German, theatrical, openly ambitious. He sketches, she couldn't. He talks, she preferred silence. He lives for the camera, she hid on her staircase. But he understands something crucial. Chanel isn't about preserving the past. It's about the audacity to believe your vision matters more than tradition. So he takes her vocabulary, the tweed, the pearls, the camellias, and he makes them scream. Supermarket fashion shows, rocket ship runways, Chanel branded everything. He turns her restraint into spectacle, her simplicity into complexity. He makes Chanel bigger than Coco ever imagined or wanted. Today, Chanel generates over $15 billion in revenue. The Wertheimers, still in control, are among the richest families in the world. The company Gabrielle Chanel started with one hat shop has become exactly what she never wanted, a corporation. Walk into any Chanel boutique and you'll see her codes everywhere. The black and white, the mirrors, the camellias. But you won't find her spirit, That fierce independence, that refusal to please, that understanding that fashion should free women, not decorate them. The suits still exist, but they cost more than most women earn in months. The perfume still sells, but it's mass-produced in factories she never saw. The brand speaks her name, but not her language. Karl Lagerfeld is dead now, too. Virginie Viard, his successor, creates pleasant clothes that offend no one and inspire few. The machine runs smoothly, profitably, eternally. It doesn't need vision anymore. It has Excel spreadsheets. So what did Coco Chanel actually build? Not just a fashion house. Anyone with money and taste can do that. Not just a brand. Those come and go like seasons. She built a new way for women to exist in the world. Before Chanel, fashion was about displaying wealth, status, ownership. After Chanel, it could be about displaying yourself. Think about it. Every time a woman chooses a blazer over a ball gown, she's speaking Chanel. Every time comfort wins over convention, that's Chanel. Every time a woman decides that she'd rather be respected than desired, that's the revolution Gabrielle started. But she also built a cautionary tale. A woman who freed others but never freed herself. Who chose autonomy over love and spent her last decades alone in hotel rooms. Who collaborated with evil because it was easier than resistance. Who became so obsessed with control that she lost everything she couldn't chain to her wrist. The house she built outlived her, outgrew her, forgot her even while stamping her name on every surface. The ultimate irony, Coco Chanel, who spent her life making sure women could be independent, created something that didn't need her at all. I keep thinking about those mirrors at 31 Rue Cambon, the ones where she sat, hidden, watching her creations walk past. Seeing everything, revealing nothing. That's the Chanel story, isn't it? All surface, all reflection, and underneath, what? A woman who lied about her past? A designer who couldn't draw? A revolutionary who ended up protecting the establishment? A feminist who sneered at other women's freedoms? But maybe that's the most honest thing about her. She never pretended to be pure. She built her house on contradictions. Luxury that looked like poverty. Fake jewels worth more than real ones. A woman's name on an empire owned by men. Stand in any Chanel boutique today and you're standing in a beautiful lie. The quilted bags, the tweed suits, the perfume bottles, they're props in a play about a woman who no longer exists, selling a dream she never really believed in, that you can buy transformation, that you can purchase power, that independence comes with a receipt. Gabrielle Chanel knew better. She knew that real freedom can't be bought or sold or inherited. It has to be taken, sewn by your own hands, cut from whole cloth, worn like armor against a world that wants to dress you up and keep you still. She built her house. Others live in it now. And somewhere in Switzerland, under a white stone marked with lions, lies a woman who changed how half the world gets dressed each morning. Not because she was good, not because she was pure, but because she looked at the way things were and decided, no. Because she picked up a needle and thread and stitched her initials into history, because she proved that a nobody from nowhere could build something that everybody, everywhere would know. That's the house that Chanel built, and it's still standing, even if she isn't.